Introduction to Windows Hello. Welcome to the channel. Please consider subscribing. I produce videos daily covering a wide variety of cloud topics with focus on networking. Also, hit the bell icon to get notified of new videos. Windows Hello represents Microsoft's comprehensive approach to passwordless authentication, fundamentally changing how users sign into Windows devices and access corporate resources. Traditional password-based authentication has long been recognized as a weak security model plagued by issues such as weak passwords, password reuse across multiple services, phishing vulnerabilities, and the constant burden on users to remember complex credentials. Windows Hello addresses these challenges by leveraging biometric authentication and hardware-based security to create a more secure, convenient, and user-friendly authentication experience. The core philosophy behind Windows Hello is that authentication should be based on something you are, or something you have, rather than something you know. Biometric authentication using facial recognition or fingerprint scanning provides the something you are factor, while PIN authentication tied to specific hardware provides the something you have factor. Unlike passwords that can be guessed, stolen through phishing, or compromised in data breaches, biometric credentials and hardware-bound PINs are inherently more secure because they cannot be easily replicated or used from different devices. Windows Hello integrates deeply with the Windows operating system and works seamlessly with Azure Active Directory, and Microsoft accounts. This integration enables single sign-on experiences where users authenticate once using Windows Hello and gain access to all their applications and resources without entering passwords. The technology uses industry-standard protocols and cryptographic techniques to ensure that biometric data never leaves the device and authentication credentials are protected by hardware security modules. Organizations adopting Windows Hello can significantly reduce their reliance on passwords, improve security posture, and enhance user productivity by eliminating the friction associated with password management. Biometric authentication methods. Windows Hello supports two primary biometric authentication methods: facial recognition and fingerprint scanning. These biometric modalities provide natural and intuitive ways for users to prove their identity without the need for passwords or PINs. Understanding how each biometric method works, the hardware requirements, and the security characteristics of each approach is essential for organizations planning Windows Hello deployments. Facial recognition in Windows Hello uses specialized infrared cameras to create a three-dimensional map of the user's face. Unlike simple photograph-based facial recognition that can be fooled by holding up a picture, Windows Hello facial recognition requires infrared depth sensing cameras that capture facial geometry and distinguish between a live person and a photograph or video recording. The infrared camera projects thousands of invisible infrared dots onto the user's face and measures how these dots are distorted by facial features. This creates a unique facial map that is converted into a mathematical template and stored securely on the device. The use of infrared technology also enables facial recognition to work in various lighting conditions, including complete darkness, making it more reliable than visible light camera systems. Fingerprint authentication leverages biometric fingerprint readers integrated into devices or connected as external peripherals. Modern fingerprint sensors use capacitive or ultrasonic technology to capture high-resolution images of fingerprint ridges and minutiae points. The captured fingerprint is processed to extract unique features and converted into a template that is stored securely in the device's trusted platform module. During authentication, the user places their finger on the sensor, and the system compares the scanned fingerprint against the stored template. If the comparison meets the required threshold for similarity, authentication succeeds. Fingerprint authentication is particularly popular in laptop and mobile device implementations where physical fingerprint sensors can be integrated into power buttons, trackpads, or keyboards. Both biometric methods offer advantages and considerations. Facial recognition provides a contactless authentication experience that is hygienic and convenient, as users simply look at their device to unlock it. This method works well for desktop and laptop scenarios where users sit in front of their computers. Fingerprint authentication offers extremely high accuracy and works regardless of viewing angle, making it suitable for devices that may be used in various orientations. Some users prefer fingerprint authentication for privacy reasons, as it does not require a camera pointing at them. Organizations often deploy devices supporting both modalities, allowing users to choose their preferred authentication method or use both for added security. The critical security principle shared by both methods is that biometric data never leaves the device and is never transmitted over networks or stored in centralized databases, ensuring that biometric information remains private and secure. PIN authentication and security. While Windows Hello is often associated with biometric authentication, PIN authentication is actually a fundamental component of the Windows Hello security model. The PIN serves multiple purposes, including acting as a fallback when biometric authentication is unavailable and providing an alternative authentication method for users who prefer not to use biometrics or whose devices lack biometric hardware. Understanding how Windows Hello pins differ from traditional passwords and why they are more secure is crucial for appreciating the overall security architecture. A Windows Hello PIN is fundamentally different from a traditional password in several critical ways. First, the PIN is tied to the specific device where it was created and cannot be used to authenticate from any other device. If an attacker learns a user's PIN, they cannot use that PIN to sign in from a different computer because the PIN is cryptographically bound to the device's trusted platform module. This hardware binding makes PINs resistant to credential theft attacks where passwords are stolen and replayed from attacker-controlled systems. Second, the PIN is never transmitted over networks during authentication. Instead, the PIN unlocks a private key stored in the TPM, and that key is used to complete authentication challenges. The PIN itself is never sent to authentication servers, eliminating the possibility of network-based interception. The Trusted Platform module plays a central role in PIN security. The TPM is a dedicated hardware security chip present in modern computers that provides cryptographic functions and secure storage for sensitive data. When a user creates a Windows Hello PIN, the system generates an asymmetric key pair within the TPM. The private key is permanently stored in the TPM and cannot be extracted, even by administrative users or malware with system-level privileges. The public key is registered with the identity provider such as Azure Active Directory. When the user enters their PIN, the TPM verifies the PIN locally and, if correct, uses the private key to sign an authentication challenge from the identity provider. The identity provider verifies the signature using the public key, confirming the user's identity without the PIN ever leaving the device. PIN complexity policies can be configured through group policy or mobile device management solutions to enforce organizational security requirements. Administrators can specify minimum PIN length, require specific character types such as digits or letters, prevent simple patterns like repeating digits, and configure PIN expiration and history requirements. However, because PINs are hardware-bound and provide multi-factor authentication benefits, PIN complexity requirements can often be less stringent than traditional password requirements while still maintaining higher security. A 6-digit numeric PIN on a TPM-protected device provides stronger security than a complex password that can be used from any device and is transmitted over networks. Organizations should balance security requirements with usability when configuring PIN policies, recognizing that overly complex PIN requirements may discourage adoption without providing commensurate security benefits given the hardware-based protection mechanisms. Trusted Platform Module Requirements. The Trusted Platform Module is the hardware foundation that makes Windows Hello's security model possible. Understanding TPM versions, capabilities, and configuration requirements is essential for successful Windows Hello deployment. The TPM provides hardware-based security functions that protect cryptographic keys from software-based attacks and ensure that authentication credentials cannot be compromised even if malware gains administrative access to the operating system. Modern Windows devices typically include TPM version 2.0, which is the current standard and provides enhanced security features compared to the older TPM 1.2 specification. TPM 2.0 supports stronger cryptographic algorithms including SHA-256 hashing and 2048-bit RSA keys. Provides better protection against dictionary attacks through anti-hammering mechanisms, and offers improved interoperability across different hardware platforms. Windows 11 requires TPM 2.0 as a mandatory hardware prerequisite, reflecting Microsoft's commitment to hardware-based security as the foundation for modern Windows devices. Windows 10 supports both TPM 1.2 and TPM 2.0, though TPM 2.0 is strongly recommended for new deployments to ensure compatibility with current and future security features. The TPM can be implemented as a discrete chip soldered to the motherboard, integrated into the processor as firmware TPM, also called Platform Trust Technology by Intel or FTPM by AMD, or in some cases as a software-based TPM emulator for virtual machines. Discrete TPM chips provide the highest level of physical security because they are separate components that are difficult to tamper with or extract keys from. Firmware TPM implementations provide comparable security for most scenarios and are more cost-effective as they leverage existing processor capabilities. Software TPM emulators are suitable for testing and development environments but should not be used for production deployments as they do not provide true hardware-based security. Organizations should verify that their devices have appropriate TPM implementations before deploying Windows Hello, particularly for high-security environments where discrete TPM chips may be required. TPM initialization and ownership are important configuration steps. The TPM must be enabled in the device BIOS or UEFI firmware before it can be used by Windows Hello. Once enabled, Windows automatically initializes the TPM and takes ownership during the first boot. TPM ownership establishes cryptographic control over the TPM and enables Windows to use it for BitLocker encryption, Windows Hello, and other security features. Administrators should ensure that TPM is enabled on all devices through BIOS management tools or manual configuration before users attempt to enroll in Windows Hello. Some organizations use configuration management tools to automatically enable and configure TPM settings during device provisioning, ensuring consistent security baselines across the fleet. Understanding TPM fundamentals and properly configuring TPM on devices ensures that Windows Hello can deliver its full security benefits through hardware-protected authentication credentials. Windows Hello for Business. Windows Hello for Business extends the consumer-focused Windows Hello feature into an enterprise-grade authentication solution integrated with organizational identity systems. While standard Windows Hello works with Microsoft accounts for consumer scenarios, Windows Hello for Business provides the additional capabilities required for corporate environments, including integration with Active Directory and Azure Active Directory, group policy management, certificate-based authentication options, and comprehensive deployment and monitoring tools. Understanding the differences between consumer Windows Hello and Windows Hello for Business is important for planning enterprise deployments. The primary distinction between Windows Hello and Windows Hello for Business lies in how credentials are managed and where they can be used. Standard Windows Hello creates device local credentials that work only with Microsoft accounts and cannot be used for accessing corporate resources managed by Active Directory or Azure AD. Windows Hello for Business, in contrast, creates credentials that are registered with organizational identity providers and can be used for single sign-on to corporate applications, network resources, and cloud services. The credentials are still hardware protected and device bound like standard Windows Hello, but they are linked to corporate user accounts rather than personal Microsoft accounts. This enterprise integration enables Windows Hello for Business to replace passwords for corporate authentication while maintaining the security benefits of hardware-based, multi-factor authentication. Windows Hello for Business supports two trust models: key-based trust and certificate-based trust. Key-based trust is the simpler deployment model where Windows Hello for Business generates an asymmetric key pair in the device TPM, and the public key is registered directly with Azure Active Directory. This model works well for cloud-focused organizations using Azure AD as their primary identity provider and does not require certificate infrastructure. Authentication occurs through Azure AD, which validates the user's identity based on the TPM protected key. Certificate-based trust involves issuing digital certificates to devices and users through an enterprise certificate authority. The certificates are stored in the TPM and used for authentication to both on-premises Active Directory and Azure AD resources. Certificate-based trust is preferred for organizations with existing public key infrastructure, hybrid environments with significant on-premises resources, or scenarios requiring certificate-based smart card authentication compatibility. Deployment models for Windows Hello for Business vary based on organizational topology and identity infrastructure. Cloud-only deployments where all user accounts are in Azure AD represent the simplest scenario, requiring minimal infrastructure beyond Azure AD and supporting devices. Hybrid deployments where organizations maintain both on-premises Active Directory and Azure AD require Azure AD Connect for identity synchronization and additional configuration to enable on-premises authentication with Windows Hello for Business credentials. On-premises deployments using exclusively on-premises Active Directory require implementing Microsoft's Enterprise Certificate Authority and Active Directory Federation services for authentication. The choice of deployment model depends on existing infrastructure, security requirements, and long-term cloud adoption strategies. Organizations should carefully evaluate their requirements and infrastructure capabilities when selecting a Windows Hello for Business deployment approach, as this decision affects deployment complexity, ongoing management overhead, and the authentication scenarios that will be supported. Authentication flow and protocols. Understanding the technical authentication flow and protocols used by Windows Hello provides insight into how the system maintains security while delivering seamless user experiences. The authentication process involves multiple components including the Windows Hello credential provider, the Trusted Platform module, the identity provider, and various security protocols that work together to authenticate users without transmitting passwords or biometric data over networks. The authentication process begins when a user attempts to unlock their Windows device. The Windows Hello credential provider, which is the user interface component that prompts for biometric or PIN authentication, captures the user's biometric sample or PIN entry. For biometric authentication, the captured biometric data is immediately compared against the stored template on the local device. If the biometric match succeeds, Windows Hello proceeds to the next step. For PIN authentication, the entered PIN is verified locally by the TPM. It is crucial to understand that biometric verification happens entirely on the device and the biometric data never leaves the device or is sent over networks. This local verification protects user privacy and prevents biometric data from being intercepted or compromised during transmission. Once local verification succeeds, Windows Hello uses the private key stored in the TPM to prove the user's identity to the identity provider. The exact protocol varies based on whether the organization uses Azure Active Directory, Active Directory with a DFS, or certificate-based authentication. For Azure AD scenarios, Windows Hello uses modern authentication protocols based on OAuth 2.0 and OpenID Connect. The device receives an authentication challenge from Azure AD, signs the challenge using the TPM protected private key, and returns the signed response to Azure AD. Azure AD validates the signature using the public key that was registered during Windows Hello enrollment. If the signature is valid, Azure AD issues authentication tokens that grant the user access to resources. This challenge response mechanism proves that the user possesses the private key associated with the registered public key, confirming their identity without transmitting any secrets. For on-premises Active Directory scenarios using certificate-based trust, Windows Hello uses the Kerberos protocol with PKI-NIT extensions. PKI-NIT, which stands for Public Key Cryptography for Initial Authentication in Kerberos, allows users to authenticate to Kerberos using certificates instead of passwords. When the user authenticates with Windows Hello, the system uses the certificate stored in the TPM to prove identity to the Active Directory domain controller. The domain controller validates the certificate against the Enterprise Certificate Authority and issues a Kerberos ticket granting ticket to the user. This TGT enables single sign-on to all Kerberos-enabled resources in the domain, just as traditional password-based authentication does, but without ever transmitting a password. The use of standard protocols like Kerberos with PKI-NET ensures compatibility with existing network resources and applications while providing the security benefits of certificate-based authentication backed by TPM hardware protection. Group policy and MDM configuration. Enterprise deployment of Windows Hello for Business requires centralized configuration and policy management to ensure consistent security settings across all organizational devices. Group policy for Active Directory domain joint devices and mobile device management solutions like Microsoft Intune for Azure AD joint and hybrid devices provide the mechanisms for configuring Windows Hello settings, enforcing security policies, and controlling the user enrollment experience. Understanding the available policy settings and how to deploy them ensures successful enterprise rollout of Windows Hello for Business. Group policy provides comprehensive control over Windows Hello for Business configuration for domain-joined Windows devices. The relevant policy settings are located in Computer Configuration under Administrative Templates, Windows Components, Windows Hello for Business. Key policies include enabling or disabling Windows Hello for Business, specifying whether to use certificate-based or key-based trust, configuring PIN complexity requirements including minimum length and character requirements, setting biometric policies such as enabling or disabling facial recognition and fingerprint authentication, and controlling the user enrollment experience. Administrators can configure these policies at the domain, organizational unit, or individual computer level, providing flexibility to apply different settings to different groups of users or devices based on security requirements. PIN complexity policies are among the most commonly configured settings. Administrators can set minimum PIN length with recommended values ranging from 6 to 8 digits, require uppercase letters, lowercase letters, or special characters for alphanumeric PINs. Enable or disable numeric-only PINs for simplified user experience. Prevent simple patterns such as 1 2 3 4 5 6 or repeating digits. Configure PIN history to prevent reuse of recent PINs, and set PIN expiration periods if periodic PIN changes are required by security policies. However, organizations should carefully consider PIN complexity requirements in the context of the hardware protection provided by the TPM. Overly complex PIN requirements can frustrate users and lead to workarounds like writing down PINs, potentially reducing rather than enhancing security. A balanced approach typically involves requiring PINs of sufficient length without excessive complexity requirements, recognizing that the TPM's hardware protection and rate limiting provide robust security even for simpler PINs. For Azure AD joined devices and mobile devices, Microsoft Intune provides equivalent configuration capabilities through device configuration profiles. Administrators create Windows Hello for Business configuration profiles in the Intune Admin Center, specifying similar settings as group policy including PIN requirements, biometric options, and security settings. These profiles are assigned to Azure AD groups containing the target devices or users. Intune applies the configurations during device enrollment or on already enrolled devices, ensuring consistent Windows Hello settings across the managed device population. Intune also provides compliance policies that can verify Windows Hello is enabled and configured according to organizational requirements, with non-compliant devices being blocked from accessing corporate resources until they meet compliance standards. Monitoring and reporting capabilities help administrators track Windows Hello for Business deployment status and identify devices that have not successfully enrolled. Group policy reporting tools can show which devices have received and applied Windows Hello policies. Intune provides detailed reporting dashboards showing enrollment status, configuration profile application success rates, and compliance policy evaluation results. For hybrid environments using both group policy and Intune, administrators must coordinate policy settings to avoid conflicts and ensure consistent user experiences. Organizations should establish clear ownership of policy management and use configuration management documentation to track which policies are deployed through which mechanisms, ensuring that Windows Hello for Business is consistently configured and effectively protecting user authentication across the entire device fleet. Conditional access integration. Windows Hello for Business integrates seamlessly with Azure Active Directory conditional access policies to provide adaptive, risk-based access control. Conditional access allows organizations to enforce multi-factor authentication, require device compliance, and apply granular access policies based on user, device, location, and risk signals. Understanding how Windows Hello for Business satisfies conditional access requirements enables organizations to implement sophisticated zero-trust security models while maintaining user convenience through passwordless authentication. One of the most powerful integrations is how Windows Hello for Business satisfies multi-factor authentication requirements. Traditional MFA requires users to provide two separate factors: something they know like a password, and something they have like a phone with an authenticator app or a hardware token. Windows Hello for Business inherently provides multi-factor authentication by combining the PIN or biometric something you are with the TPM protected key something you have. When users authenticate with Windows Hello, conditional access policies requiring MFA are automatically satisfied without additional authentication prompts. This creates a seamless authentication experience where users unlock their devices with a biometric or PIN and immediately gain access to all resources that require MFA, eliminating the repetitive authentication prompts that typically frustrate users in high-security environments. Device compliance policies work in conjunction with Windows Hello for Business to ensure that only properly secured devices can access corporate resources. Intune compliance policies can verify that devices have Windows Hello for Business enabled, TPM is present and functioning correctly, BitLocker encryption is active, operating systems are up to date with security patches, and device health attestation confirms the device boot process has not been tampered with. Conditional access policies can require that devices meet compliance standards before granting access to sensitive applications or data. This combination ensures that authentication credentials protected by Windows Hello are only used on devices that meet organizational security baselines, preventing compromised or poorly maintained devices from accessing corporate resources even if users successfully authenticate. Risk-based conditional access leverages Azure AD identity protection to analyze authentication attempts for signs of compromise or unusual behavior. Identity protection assigns risk levels to user accounts and sign-in sessions based on factors such as impossible travel patterns where a user appears to authenticate from geographically distant locations within an impossible timeframe, sign-ins from anonymous IP addresses or known malicious infrastructure, leaked credentials detected through security research and dark web monitoring, and unfamiliar sign-in properties that deviate from established user behavior patterns. Conditional access policies can use these risk assessments to enforce additional security measures or block access entirely. For Windows Hello for Business users, this might mean requiring an additional authentication factor if a high-risk sign-in is detected, forcing password reset if user risk is elevated, or blocking access until an administrator investigates and remediates the risk. The combination of strong hardware-based authentication through Windows Hello and intelligent risk detection through identity protection provides comprehensive protection against both stolen credentials and account compromise scenarios, delivering defense-in-depth security for identity and access management. Troubleshooting and common issues. While Windows Hello for Business provides a robust passwordless authentication solution, deployments may encounter various challenges related to hardware compatibility, configuration issues, or enrollment problems. Understanding common issues and their resolution approaches enables administrators to quickly diagnose and fix problems, ensuring users can successfully adopt Windows Hello and benefit from passwordless authentication. Effective troubleshooting requires familiarity with diagnostic tools, log files, and the various components involved in the Windows Hello ecosystem. Hardware compatibility issues are among the most common problems encountered during Windows Hello deployment. Not all devices have the required biometric hardware or TPM versions needed for Windows Hello. Administrators should verify that devices meet minimum hardware requirements including TPM 2.0 for new deployments, Windows Hello compatible biometric sensors such as infrared cameras for facial recognition or fingerprint readers meeting Windows biometric framework requirements, and sufficient system RAM resources for running biometric recognition algorithms. The System Information Utility and Device Manager can help identify present hardware, while the TPM Management Console confirms TPM version and status. For devices lacking appropriate biometric hardware, organizations might need to procure external USB fingerprint readers or upgrade devices to models with integrated biometric capabilities. Enrollment failures often relate to configuration issues or network connectivity problems. When users attempt to enroll in Windows Hello for Business, the enrollment process must communicate with identity providers to register public keys or obtain certificates. Common causes of enrollment failures include devices not being properly joined to Azure AD or hybrid joined to both Azure AD and on-premises Active Directory, network connectivity issues preventing communication with Azure AD or certificate authorities, group policy or Intune configuration errors that misconfigure required settings, certificate authority issues in certificate-based deployments where certificate templates are not properly configured, and user account issues such as missing required licenses for Azure AD Premium features. The Windows Hello provisioning logs located in Event Viewer under Applications and Services Logs, Microsoft, Windows Hello for Business provide detailed information about enrollment attempts and failures, helping administrators identify the specific failure point. Authentication failures after successful enrollment can stem from various causes. If biometric authentication fails, it may be due to changes in the user's appearance for facial recognition, such as growing a beard or significant weight changes, dirty or damaged fingerprint sensors that cannot capture clear fingerprint images, poor lighting conditions for cameras, though this is less common with infrared cameras, or biometric templates becoming corrupted, requiring re-enrollment. For PIN authentication failures, common issues include users forgetting their PINs requiring PIN reset procedures, TPM lockout after too many failed PIN attempts requiring administrator intervention, or TPM hardware failures requiring device replacement or repair. Organizations should establish clear support procedures for Windows Hello issues, including documentation for PIN reset processes, instructions for re-enrolling biometric credentials, and escalation routes for hardware-related problems that cannot be resolved through software configuration. Diagnostic tools available for troubleshooting include the DS-REG-CMD command line utility, which displays device join status and Windows Hello configuration details, Event Viewer, which contains extensive logging for Windows Hello operations, the Windows Hello enrollment provisioning tool, which can manually trigger enrollment for testing, and PowerShell scripts that can query Windows Hello status and configuration across multiple devices. Administrators should develop a systematic troubleshooting methodology starting with verifying hardware compatibility, confirming proper device join status, validating network connectivity to required services, reviewing configuration policies, examining event logs for specific error codes, and testing with known good devices to isolate whether issues are device-specific or environment-wide. Building internal knowledge bases documenting common issues and their resolutions helps support teams efficiently resolve Windows Hello problems and maintain high user satisfaction with passwordless authentication. Security benefits and future roadmap. Windows Hello for Business delivers substantial security improvements over traditional password-based authentication while simultaneously enhancing user experience and reducing IT operational overhead. Understanding the comprehensive security benefits helps justify investments in Windows Hello deployment and supports organizational security strategies moving toward passwordless authentication. Additionally, awareness of Microsoft's roadmap for Windows Hello and passwordless authentication helps organizations plan long-term identity security architectures aligned with industry trends. The elimination of password-related vulnerabilities is the most significant security benefit of Windows Hello. Traditional passwords are vulnerable to numerous attack vectors, including phishing, where users are tricked into entering credentials on fake websites, keylogging malware that captures keystrokes including passwords, credential stuffing attacks using passwords leaked from other services, brute force attacks that try many password combinations, and social engineering where attackers manipulate users into revealing passwords. Windows Hello eliminates all these attack vectors because there are no passwords to phish, capture, guess, or steal. The biometric and PIN credentials work only on the specific device where they were created and cannot be replayed from attacker-controlled systems. Even if attackers compromise a corporate network or Azure AD tenant, they cannot use stolen Windows Hello credentials because the private keys remain protected in device TP-MIS and cannot be extracted. Operational benefits complement the security advantages. Organizations deploying Windows Hello significantly reduce password-related help desk costs, as forgotten password resets typically represent a substantial portion of IT support tickets. Users cannot forget biometric credentials, and PIN reset procedures are simpler and more secure than password resets because PINs are device-bound and do not provide access from other devices. Compliance and audit processes are simplified because Windows Hello provides stronger authentication assurance than passwords, potentially reducing requirements for additional security controls in regulated industries. User productivity improves as employees spend less time entering passwords, dealing with account lockouts, and completing password reset procedures. The seamless authentication experience where users simply look at their devices or touch fingerprint sensors creates a more natural interaction model that users prefer over typing complex passwords multiple times throughout the day. Microsoft's strategic direction for Windows Hello and passwordless authentication continues to evolve with enhancements and new capabilities. Recent and planned developments include expanded FIDO2 security key support, enabling Windows Hello to work with external hardware authenticators for high-security scenarios, improved remote desktop and Windows 365 integration allowing Windows Hello authentication for cloud-hosted Windows desktops, enhanced biometric capabilities with support for additional biometric modalities and improved accuracy, passwordless phone sign-in where users can authenticate to Windows devices using Windows Hello on their mobile devices as an alternative to biometric or PIN authentication on the computer itself, and deeper integration with Microsoft 365 applications and third-party applications to expand passwordless authentication beyond Windows sign-in to all application authentication scenarios. Organizations should view Windows Hello for business deployment as a strategic initiative within broader passwordless authentication and zero-trust security strategies. The technology aligns with industry trends away from password-based authentication towards stronger, more user-friendly alternatives. As Microsoft continues investing in Windows Hello capabilities and as hardware support for biometric authentication becomes universal in new devices, the pathway to fully passwordless enterprises becomes increasingly practical. Organizations beginning Windows Hello deployments today should plan for phased rollout, starting with pilot groups to gain experience and refine processes, followed by expanding to broader user populations as success is demonstrated. Long-term planning should consider how Windows Hello integrates with other passwordless technologies such as FIDO2 security keys for high-privilege accounts, certificate-based authentication for legacy applications, and mobile authenticator apps for scenarios where Windows Hello is not available. By establishing Windows Hello as the primary authentication method for Windows devices and users, organizations build a foundation for comprehensive passwordless authentication that improves security, enhances user experience, and positions identity infrastructure for future innovations in authentication technology. Thank you for your attendance. Please consider subscribing to the channel and liking this video.